Well, hello. I want to talk to you today about the Kaweco Dia2. This is a modern fountain pen, but it has quite an ancestry. Right here in this close-up, I have a modern Kaweco Dia2 next to its ancient ancestor from the 1930s. And you can see that the modern pen is a much smaller pen. Also, the modern pen, see, the old one had a piston converter. I'm sorry, not a converter, just a piston. The new one does not. The new one is a cartridge converter, both screw caps. The old one had a solid gold nib. The new one, we'll get to that. But it does come with a converter. And now is a good time to start talking about it. Here is a big problem I discovered when I first started using this pen. I like to check ink level, and when I would unscrew it to check ink level, oops, ink everywhere. Why? Because in the barrel up toward the end was this spring, which must have been vaguely glued or somehow pressed in, and it went over the end of the converter like this. So it would grab the converter and screw it open. Every time I would open the pen, it was just like, okay, I won't be checking my ink level with this pen. But since I got that out, I'm okay. It is a very substantial feeling pen. I think it's metal, but then it has some kind of a nice lacquer over it, which I appreciate because I don't like metal pens, and I've said that before. Now, this is a broad nib. We will discuss that. The screw cap, nice, substantial, just very solid feeling pen. I like it. You know, if you're not into black and gold pens, you'll just be like, ooh, okay, that wasn't very exciting. But it is a very nice writer. Now, I am going to do two reviews here. So on this side, I'm going to write, and don't worry, I'll pull back at the end so we can compare. I am going to write with the steel broad nib. Now, yes, it is gold-plated, and I just misspelled steel. Wow, steel. I used to know someone from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I should know how to spell the word steel. Anyway, steel broad, so this guy's a nail. Flex. Meh. I mean, yes, there's some line variation, but not terribly exciting. I found that this nib was very skippy, very hard starting, very disappointing. But I put a different ink in it. Made all difference. So if you're going to use a Noodler's ink, like I was using Noodler's Matahari's Cordial, this isn't the nib for you. You put in something like Iroshizuku Yama-budo, well, that writes awesome. So I find that the broader Kaweco nibs do struggle with inks like Noodler's Matahari's Cordial. But they do just fine with some of the other inks like Iroshizuku Yama-budo. So that may tell you something about the fluid in those inks or whatever. But anyway, so flex, I always do, what do? I'm trying to remember. I always have them written out ahead of time. Smear test, which has just as much to do with the ink as it does with the nib. Let's see, what's another good one? Wetness and flow. Yeah, like a typical Kaweco nib, no problem keeping up. Reverse writing, let's just write the word reverse. I'm not even going to write the full reverse quote. It is reverse writing a lot like what I would picture a fine. And very smooth. I mean, that's, if I bought a pen, a fine pen that wrote like that, I wouldn't object to it at all. Do I do anything else? I don't think so. So let's do a quote. Now I've been saving two shorter quotes, so we'll go with those. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unscrew my pen. I'm going to nudge the ink down toward the bottom of the converter, gently lay the converter here, not splash. And the nib, oh, we'll use one of the cloths I used to clean up my mess. The nib screws out, and we'll just gently, what the heck, let's just leave the nib on the cloth. Then I'm going to screw in my gold nib, which costs almost as much as the pen itself. Stick in the converter. I'm going to walk away and figure out what I'm going to have for supper, and then I'll come back and we'll do a writing sample with the other nib. All right, I'm back. So I may or may not have forgotten to check how long that was, but when I have the broad gold needle in, wow, that sounded horrible. So this is the gold broad. If you're doing what I just did, which is where you replace the nib, one thing you may want to do is expel a little bit of air and then take some in, just to make sure you've got that bit of suction in the converter, because I think that may be my problem here. So let's try again, just a little bit lower. Most of that's looking okay. So let's try, we'll just do, I'll come back and do the smear test. Let's just do the reverse writing. Oh yeah, so that's much more reasonable. So again, every good squirrel does fine. That actually looks almost like a regular broad, maybe a medium. All right, so if you switch nibs mid-writing, do expel a little air and pull some in so you get some air pressure difference. So let's try those two tests again. The flex won't really make a difference, but let's do the smear test all over again. Yeah, very nearly made a bad mistake. Now that's definitely smearier because it is wetter, but not as horrible. Wetness and flow. And it's dry now. The ink I was doing before isn't even dry yet. Boom. Nice. All right, so let's get around to our quote. Let me pull back just a teeny bit further. I still don't feel like I'm getting it. All right, so again, I picked two small quotes off of my list, and I always cross them off as I do them, and I forgot on the last one. So let's go with, let's go with the Dalai Lama. All right, so plain black pen it may be, but this is a very nice writer. It is a very nice looking pen. It is a very nice pen to hold in your hand. It just has a good feel, has good sounds. I mean, put that cap on and just like, ooh, that's how a cap should sound. I love the gold nib on this. It just, like I said, make sure you get a little suction into the converter when you switch nibs. But the broad, as long as you're using the right ink, is nice too. And actually, the gold nib does quite a lot better with some of the more difficult inks, like, say, Noodler's Matahari's Cordial. So would I buy this pen again? Oh, absolutely, in a heartbeat. And probably with the gold nib. It's just attractive, it writes well, it's a pen I like to have with me. Now, I didn't talk about size or shortcomings or anything like that, so let's do that real quick. As far as size, it's about ½ inch shorter than the Noodler's Conrad capped, a lot heavier. Uncapped, about ½ inch shorter than the Noodler's Conrad, and a much smaller nib, by the way, and not a flex nib. Posted, even the gold isn't flex. Posted, it's only about 1/8 of an inch shorter and definitely a much smaller nib. But I just like this pen a lot. Even if I hadn't bought the gold nib, once I discovered how well this pen works with the right ink, it is spectacular. and I'd absolutely buy it again. As far as the grip, I mean, it may be a metal pen, but the lacquer on it, I don't feel it. The grip is the right size. It's just barely concave enough to be just right in the fingers. It's the right length unposted. A little bit plain looking pen, but you know, really what I buy the pen for is to write, and it does that spectacularly. So yes, I like this pen a lot, and even better with the gold nib. So I thank you for watching, and I welcome you to check out any other reviews you want to see from a North Dakota perspective, or driving videos in North Dakota. Subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you later. So I'm going to set the old pen aside. By the way, ink window in the old one. I see I can't stop talking about the old one. Bad squirrel. Okay, pause to review.